Hello and welcome to Gettable, AFL.com.au's home of trade, draft, free agency and contract news. We are brought to you, as always, by Google Pixel. Great to have Google Pixel on board for season 2024. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Cal Toomey. Cal, we've got a massive show coming up. We'll be speaking to a potential number one pick in Finn O'Sullivan. He'll be here with us. We'll also look at some of the biggest names still left on the trade table.
Yeah, there's still up to 40 players that we want to go through now, Riles, because there's so much happening. We want to let you know about what's happening with the best players out of contract, the players who are in contract. What are their options? What are they deciding? What have they got on the table? So let's go through a few off the top. I want to start with Harry Perryman. I think this one still has three options. Stay at the Giants, where he has a 6-year offer, as you reported a couple of weeks ago. Go to Port Adelaide or go to Hawthorn. The Hawks are still in it. He's still one of their big three targets, weighing all of them up, and the Hawks aren't out of it by any means. Dan Houston, if the Power let, and this one could be entwined as well, if the Power let Houston get back to Melbourne, pick 2 first-round picks up as part of that, and we're able to land Harry Perryman and potentially Isaac Cumming, I think they come out winners. So they hold control over the Houston trade. He's signed there long-term, but as we revealed a couple of weeks ago, very strong ties to Victoria, and the Demons are keen. Caleb Daniel, this one, to me, looks like a late trade period deal. So a suitor will come for him and emerge, but at the moment, he's probably not a Category A target. What about Mark Keane? Mark
Keane's an interesting one. So the Irishman at Adelaide still got a year left on his contract at 2025. Don't forget, he started his career at Collingwood, went back to Ireland, came back, played for Adelaide. I think rival clubs now think he'll request a trade back to Collingwood. It's been on the radar for some time now, but definitely attracting interest from the Pies.
Tom Barrass, this can change daily. West Coast has been in negotiations on his current deal, but he has the Bulldogs and Hawthorn coming hard. The Hawks, I think, have jumped into favouritism for this one. So I think they're the new front runner if he does seek to leave West Coast, but contracted for 3 more years. So we do know that he's changed his mind before. I think their pick this year, the Hawks, is in play, whereas the Dogs maybe use their future first to get this done. But long-term offers there for both of these clubs, so he has a big decision to make, and it's leaning, I think, towards trying to get out. But in that saying that, Eagles have control again. So he's contracted, so unless the trade is a really strong one, I'm not sure that necessarily happens. Harry Edwards is tied up in this one a little bit as well from Eagles. Could be gettable because he does have offers and interest from Victorian clubs, but West Coast has a fight on its hands to keep him because of that. He has negotiations at the moment. He's in negotiations on a new deal at the Eagles, a multi-year offer in front of him. Daniel Rioli, the Suns are there and waiting. Will their offer make the Tigers do it? Pick 11 and 20. Would you do it? I'd be thinking about it pretty hard if I'm Richmond.
Yeah, 3 first-round picks for the Suns, so you've got stuff to play with there.
Riley Garcia?
Riley Garcia is an interesting one. So Josh Gablich reported on AFL.com.au a couple of weeks ago that Port Adelaide and West Coast circling, has links back to Perth, obviously being from Western Australia, out of contract at the Western Bulldogs and unable to crack their midfield. So I'd expect Riley Garcia to be on the move.
Liam Ryan is signed through the end of 2026, but has clubs thinking about whether they can tempt him out and whether West Coast would be tempted by that. How do they generate more draft capital if they do keep Barrass this year? Elliot Himmelberg, absolutely gettable. Has a contract offer from the Crows, but is looking around. He wanted the Giants last time, and the Giants wanted him, but don't expect it to happen this year from that respect. Bailey Scott, expecting him to follow Cam Zurhaar's lead and re-sign at the Roos. I think that's where that one probably sits as well. 2-year deal on the table. I expect him to stay there. Dylan Shield contracted for next year. Interesting case. I mean, he's back in the Bombers lineup, but 1 year to go on his deal. I don't see him as a great fit for St Kilda personally. Liam Baker, this is a massive decision for him. I think it's one that's probably tearing up to some degree which way it goes for him. Is it the childhood club in West Coast? Is it Fremantle, who looks like a premiership contender this year, next year, the years after? They're the 5th youngest team in the competition in their top 4. I think he goes. I just don't know exactly which club. I've always said that it's not just West Coast. I've always thought Fremantle, through its strong hand of picks, is going to be right in this fight, and I still think that. His manager in Melbourne this week, Jason Dover, so you expect they're getting closer to that decision. Look at across the page, Tim Membry.
Tim Membry's an interesting one. So a free agent this year, delisted free agent, courtesy of being delisted by the Swans all that time ago. Has had a really good couple of weeks for the Saints, which is going to draw interest, I think, from rival clubs. Still only 30 years old. Clubs had a look at him last year, but under contract, found it too difficult to get him out. So I think as a free agent this year, he might be a chance of leaving.
What about Isaac Cumming?
Yeah, Isaac Cumming's another really intriguing one in the sense that he's got a long-term deal in front of him from GWS, but there are clubs circling. I think if he was to leave, it'd be to go back to Adelaide, where he's got family ties. Whether or not that's Adelaide or or Port Adelaide still remains to be seen. Fremantle and Melbourne have been keen on Isaac Cumming as well. I think they're less likely given the fact that South Australia, GWS, he has links to both of those.
Jackson Binns is fascinating for me in a different sort of way in that he's got 2 years to go on his deal at Carlton, but they have 2 more midfielders coming in, don't they? And he can't break in at the moment in the Camporeale brothers. So I think he might have opportunities elsewhere, and we see if they land for him. I think he's a trade option for clubs. Jack Carroll weighing things up, but has interest from Western Australia. He isn't contracted, out of contract at the moment. Speaking of weighing things up from Western Australia, Tim English, 6-year offer from West Coast against the 5-year Western Bulldogs offer. He's still deciding. Really the only restricted free agent left in it, if you discount Patrick Dangerfield, as we all probably do. He's had patience with his decision, but I still have the Dogs as favourites to keep him and for him to stay there. But the West Coast offer is obviously tempting, and Nick Bryan is kind of tied up in the ruck merry-go-round decision of Tim English too. Contracted for 1 more year at Essendon. Essendon, an interesting ruck spot. Whether Goldie goes on, there's talk that he could. What does that mean for Nick Bryan? And Jake Stringer too at the Bombers in terms of the interesting contract ones at the Bombers too. No movement still on Stringer, still yet to get into real negotiations. So a real interesting situation there. What about the small forward?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of small forwards.
Pocket changes, we're calling them.
Jacob
Constanti.
Yeah, Jacob Constanti out of contract at the Swans. Still hasn't been able to crack that side. First round pick from a few years ago. So you can see why clubs would be keen if he was looking at his options, which I think he will at the end of the year. So definitely a trade target for rival clubs. Matt Owies is another one which we've spoken about so often on this show, in the sense that he's having a career best year at Carlton. He's still out of contract, still doesn't have a deal on the table. You can see why rival clubs would be going for Matt Owies, and they are circling him pretty significantly. Joe Richards is in a similar boat at the Pies. Still no offer on the table for him from Collingwood. There have been clubs that have registered their interest in him already. He obviously had that interest when he came late as a draftee from being a school teacher, completely off the radar. Clubs were watching him then. Collingwood picked him up, but I think they'd want to keep him, but other clubs certainly circling there, as they are around Jack Martin, who I think now will leave Carlton at the end of the year. Hasn't been able to crack the side since coming back from his latest injury setback. He's only played 1 game for the year. He's had so many injury issues throughout his time at the Blues. We mentioned Freo were keen on him a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if he goes back to Freo, but I think now he does leave Carlton at the end of the year.
What about Jack Graham?
Yeah, Jack Graham's another one that could potentially leave clubs. We've spoken about the interest from West Coast as an unrestricted free agent. He, of course, toured Port Adelaide a couple of years ago. He's from South Australia. I don't think the interest from South Australia is as strong as it was a couple of years ago. So West Coast among the clubs keen there. I wouldn't discount or rule out Richmond potentially keeping Jack Graham. I think talks are going to start to begin there on whether or not they can retain him beyond this year as well, if West Coast's interest isn't as strong as it once was.
All right, Alex Davies from the Suns has a 2-year offer from the Gold Coast to keep him. Other clubs are sniffing around though, so he's a taller midfielder ready to play. He probably played his best game a couple of weeks ago when he got suspended. Shea Bolton, well, Freo's still chasing him and he wants to get back to Western Australia. He will pursue this. 4 years to run on his deal, but the Tigers...
4 years?
Yeah, the Tigers, again, are in control of this one. But the Dockers have picks. It comes down to this big call. Do you do it now while the club that he might want to get to has the selections to appease? And is that appealing enough to make it happen? And how deep do you cut? That's still a watch for me. Jack McRae's 2 years to run on his deal at the Dogs. Managed last week, been the sub the week before. Still look at the Cats as maybe a decent fit for him if they'd like to add to their midfield with some experience and bigger bodied options. Ben Hobbs, another midfielder who will be attracting some I'd say interest from rivals as well, looking at midfield options, because might come in with this week for the Bombers, but hasn't been able to get a look in really into their midfield this season. 1 year to go on his deal. Brandon Parfitt, free agent at the Cats, eminently gettable there. Another midfielder, it's worth backing over as well as Elijah Sardis. We mentioned this probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I still see clubs having a good look at him. He's putting up some good numbers and performances in the VFL. Does have some midfielders ahead of him though at the Bombers right here, right now. So that's a couple of those guys.
Big key defenders as well in terms of Josh Battle.
Absolutely, Josh Battle. Well, he is one that is weighing up significant offers at home and away in St Kilda and also at the Hawks. He's not playing like someone who's checked out. He's playing like someone very committed. You wonder if the way St Kilda's performed in recent weeks, over the last 6 weeks or so, can sway him. Obviously, the Hawks have thrown the kitchen sink, the whole bathroom at him, I think, in terms of getting him across to be an unrestricted free agent, and he is one of their big targets. And Bailey Smith is obviously, we've spoken about a lot. I think if it wasn't Geelong now, it'd be a real change and a backflip. But obviously the Hawks are in that race and have been in that race too. But the Hawks are the one for me. When you look at the big 3 that they're chasing, if you make it 4 through Bailey Smith as well.
Yeah.
They are going and trying to strike while the iron is hot. They are the hot team of the competition.
They're a pretty enticing team to join.
Absolutely, and the players who have joined them have gotten better this year as well.
Yeah.
So that's a good streak to add too.
I reckon you look at how much fun they're having and think, geez, I wouldn't mind playing there one day in the future.
So we've got Finn O'Sullivan
Breathe,
coming
Cal.
on.
Breathe.
We need a breath. Well, we will do that because we were going to have Finn O'Sullivan in the studio. Our screen did have a little bit of a nap, so we relocated. But it was good to chat with him as well.
Let's bring in Finn O'Sullivan.
That's right, Riley, here with Finn O'Sullivan. Finn, thanks for joining us in the makeshift Gettable studio. Just put a sums up a little bit of your year. It hasn't exactly gone to plan, but let's talk about your draft season because a couple of injuries in the first half of the season. It's been great to see you back over the last little bit.
Yeah, no, thanks, first of all, thanks for having me. But yeah, no, it hasn't been the season that I've planned for. Obviously, it's been a great year for myself, having year 12 school, busy year. So yeah, it's been exciting, but yeah, definitely not as planned.
You're still wearing the finger brace. Tell us about those couple of injuries. First it was the thumb, then it was the finger. How have you sort of reflected on those little setbacks?
Yeah, so still got the finger brace on, just mainly for protection. Obviously, being in the boarding house at Xavier, yeah, it's kind of a bit of survival instincts. You kind of not let anyone touch you. So, but yeah, no, the fingers are going well. Just working hard to, get them back to where I want them to be, where I'm, hopefully playing my best footy and yeah, taking grabs and all that. So hopefully get them strong. Yeah.
That is a big part of your game. For those who haven't seen you play too much yet, obviously the overhead marking is a strength as a midfielder. What are the other things you feel like set you apart as a player?
Yeah, I think it is something that hopefully sets me apart. Also, I think competitive nature. I feel like there's always a feeling in me that there's a chance to win and that that I can get the ball. So yeah, definitely my competitiveness. Also, probably say in a way my evasiveness maybe in stoppage. Yep. Yeah, I feel like when I have the ball, like I can be dangerous, but yeah, it's just about trying to get the ball first. So. Yeah.
Now, the season obviously has been interrupted, but you did get back for the end of Vic Country's championships, which is obviously a highlight, I'm sure, to be back in there in the big V for Vic Country. How did you find those last couple of games?
Yeah, 100%. It was an awesome game. I was lucky enough to play the last two games. One up in Brisbane, the other one was at Marvel, where we it was pretty good game.
Yeah.
Obviously didn't get until the end. Yeah, obviously didn't get the chockies, but had so much fun playing it. It was awesome. Yeah.
How was it out there in that last quarter? You grab the lead back, you lose it right at the end. What are the emotions like in a championship deciding game like that?
Yeah, it was hard. It was a fierce battle. So I think for me it was more about trying to stay composed. I think not having the ball as much as I'd like throughout that game kind of switched something in me that I just had to stay composed. Didn't have to do anything that I wouldn't do. And just trying to help the team and get the win. So obviously it didn't go to plan, but that's all right.
You'd been there and done that though before, given your experience last year at underage level or bottom age level for Vic Country, where you're an All-Australian as well. So you got some great runs on the board in your 17th year. What did that mean for your confidence heading into your draft season?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to play last year alongside some great players who are doing really good things this year. So yeah, no, it was awesome. So I felt like kind of had a step ahead of a few boys, having that experience of playing at that level and in them tight games. So yeah, it was great. Last year was awesome. But yeah, compared to this year, they both had their own fun features of the year. So no, they were both great.
Still a good block of games to go, and hopefully a final series for Oakley as well. A couple of or school game at least over the weekend. Tell us about the aims for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so got one more school footy game for the year, which we're facing off against Haileybury, who are one of the top teams. So they should be a hard team to play. And then after that, I'll kind of transfer over to Oakley, where I'll hopefully play the remaining of the year, maybe in a flag there.
Potentially, they tend to win flags a fair bit at Oakley. What about just the way that you progress as a player? Who are the AFL players that you look at from an idol point of view and think they've got some attributes that I feel like I've got as well?
Yeah, no, there's definitely some players that I'll look at and who are great role models for me. And I think of probably Willem Drew from Port Adelaide. So obviously he's a Korean boy, so where I'm from. But yeah, just his competitive nature and his unselfishness is just next level, and that's something that I try to bring to my game. And yeah, also probably Sam Walsh. She has a lot of pride, I think, playing with Carlton. And yeah, he's so unselfish, does the little things right. So yeah, them two are both people that I look up to.
I know you're probably sick of us mentioning the family link to Sam Walsh, but he's a second cousin, of course. So it must have been from an early age good to see someone achieve what you want to achieve this year.
100%. Yeah, I think I think both me and Sam, family definitely a huge part of our life. So yeah, seeing someone who you're related to go that well and celebrate it with his family is just awesome. So yeah.
Have you lent on him for a little bit of advice?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, he's yeah, I haven't had a heap to do with him, just considering that he's been up in Melbourne playing, his footy with Carlton, so I haven't had a heap of time with him. But yeah, the times that I have, he's been awesome. Yeah.
So you've obviously been talked about as an early pick. How have you found that to begin with, and what sort of dealings have you had with some of the clubs with those early selections at the moment? You trained at North Melbourne over summer, West Coast, of course, Richmond too. But how have you found that whole process being described as a potential number one contender?
Yeah, I guess that I've been pretty lucky just to not get caught up, I guess, in any of them things. Like, I try and stay present in the moment. I feel like I've got a great family and friends to lean on for support and help if I need. So yeah, in that regard, I'm pretty lucky. Yeah, I don't try and think about it too much. I guess at the end of the day, it is what it is. I'm happy to go to whatever club would have me. Yeah.
You've already moved up to the boarding house at Xavier College. How'd you find that?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I've got so many good mates there who all love sharing time with. So yeah, they're all awesome. Yeah.
What's Croydon like for those who haven't been there?
Oh, it's cold and windy. Nah, it's awesome. Nah, I love it. I wouldn't rather live anywhere else. Yeah, I've tried to get home back as much as I can. Obviously, it's hard with school and being in year 12, but I'll try and get back as much as often. I just love it there, yeah.
So I like a nickname. We come up to the Wizard a few years ago and that seems to have caught on. Yeah. I can't claim Foss though. But that one's stuck with you pretty well. You're pretty synonymous with Foss. Who first dubbed you that?
It was a bloke named Chuck Wright-Smith. So yeah, he brought me into the Bordeaux and they started calling me Fossil, I think, first, and then got to Foss somehow, as you do with nicknames. They lead to something else. And
you're happy with that to stick at AFL level?
Yeah, I guess it is what it is. Yeah, take whatever.
Now, before we let you go, and do appreciate you coming in, and thanks heaps for your time, and it's a school day as well. Hemisphere Management Group, which you're a part of, always come into our draft countdown shows. We might get you back in later in the year when you've got a full studio to have a look around. We'll give you the tour then. But it's also Movember then. Are you going to be partaking in the Movember trend this year?
I'm trying to get it going at the moment.
You better start now.
Yeah, I will. No more shaving now, but yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, Hemisphere, they're awesome. And to go on with this, going with Movember is just awesome. Just to raise awareness for mental health. I think it's awesome. Yeah.
Thanks for coming in, but you don't leave empty-handed. Oh, nearly dropped it. That was a tough throw. You are now officially Gettable, Finn. We'll chuck that up to the camera, mate. Thanks for coming in, and we'll look forward to watching you the next couple of weeks.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Legend.
A huge thanks to Finn O'Sullivan. What a great kid.
Legend. You nearly took my head off with that T-shirt try.
I had one job for that entire thing, and it was to ping the T-shirt.
Maud Flanders.
Yeah, I really did. All right, we've decided to bring back Kaleidoscope.
Here we are. Yes!
The segment that everyone wanted back.
Yeah, absolutely. So they've been calling for it. So I'm big on adding new terms to the footy lexicon, as you're aware.
Yes,
we just actually did mention the Wizard. It seems like that one's caught on pretty well. Pick purchasing. That was a baby mine. The EFO.
Yep.
Fate. But another one needs to come in. It's the foot. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue quite as much. The 4 optics only trigger. So this is coming into the game more and more, and you don't even know it. So you need to look closer next time a club re-signs a player in a long-term deal, particularly a long-term deal, with pretty easy triggers, so they don't have to go through the rigmarole of a longer extension. Some clubs need their boards to tick off deals to get approval for these longer-term deals, but they do it through the foot, the 4 optics only trigger. And that means that these extra little triggers have been brought in, whereby they only have to hit a few games to do this extra little trigger and get another year. That otherwise, basically, it's a 6-year deal, but it's presented as a 5-year deal 4 optics only trigger with a 6-year add-on. So just a couple of names, and not all of these are
Give us
4
some examples.
Not all of these are 4 optics only.
They're not all foots.
They're not all foots, but Will Hayward, 5 years and a trigger for a 6. That's a 5'6" deal. Ben Ainsworth, 4 years and a trigger for a 5th. That's 5'4". Connor Rosie, 8 years and a trigger for a 9th. That's 8'9", as we say now. Ben Mackay last year, 6 years and a trigger for a 7th. That's 6'7". Probably about how tall he is. Tyson Stengel, 5 years and a trigger for a 6. That's 5'6", probably how tall he is. Harry Perryman, 7 years and from a club on the table. I think that's 6 years and a trigger for a 7th. He isn't 6'7". But just think, next time you see
Who's
a
the
club,
optics for?
it's for not wanting to give a long-term deal out to clubs, and clubs and supporters say, "Oh, why are we giving that player 6 years or 7 years?" Well, I don't care. I don't care, and they should just say, "This is what it is." But just be aware of the 4 optics only trigger. Next time you see a long-term deal,
I like it.
Wonder if it's got a foot attached.
Foot. Foot's better than fate for me.
Oh, you reckon?
Foot fate, I reckon.
Don't know.
All right, let's
5'6", 6'7".
5'6".
I can't believe
Who's on the 5'6"
Ben Mackay
deal?
actually lines up with a 6'7".
he might
Ben
be
Ainsworth, 4'5".
Okay.
No, he's a bit taller than that.
He's taller than that. That's unfortunate for Benny. All right, let's get to Askable now. Askable is, of course, brought to you by Google Pixel. That's where you ask us the questions on Instagram at Gettable. We answer them. And we might start with a Google question. On Google Pixel, the Magic Editor feature lets you edit your photos right on your phone. And Cal, I want to know, if you could use the phone to edit the Gettable rundown and celebrate a standout under-18 performances from the weekend, who would you feature?
Well, it's funny you asked, Riley. It is funny you asked. Almost as funny as that little clip. The coffee mug was massive. Yeah. All right, let's start with Jagger Smith. Let's do a bit of around the grounds. Jagger Smith was terrific again in the VFL. His performances just keep stacking up. 27 disposals for Richmond's VFL side in very tough conditions. So his number 1 stocks are rising. Malachi Champion in the West. Kicked 3 goals in the senior waffle debut for Subiaco. Very talented, a member of the Eagles Next Generation Academy. Can do some pretty exciting things as a small forward. Alex Dodson, what a game from him. The ruckman who's still weighing up his basketball and footy futures. He had 32 disposals and 34 hit-outs for Spurs under 18 side.
He's signing a 6'7" deal one day.
Yeah, he might be 7'7", 7'8". Bo Allen, he's played 3 games in a row at league level for Peel Thunder. Had 14 disposals on the weekend. He's a really exciting prospect. I like him, and clubs do as well. Top 10 to 15, can play back, go forward, do a bit of everything in the midfield, so he's a really exciting player. Jesse Detoli, I watched him play on the weekend at school level, actually against Finn O'Sullivan. He is a magnificent player, very, very smart, accomplished footballer. It was like I was watching Jimmy Bartell in the wet. He had the long sleeves, he took marks overhead, he kicked goals. He is a really talented player. I've probably underestimated him a little bit. I think next time I do the top 30, he'll be in it. So he's coming really, really well, and he's in the next 30 for my form guide for sure. Sid Draper, 4 quality sample games in a row.
He's been good.
This year's Caleb Sarong, 26 disposals and a goal against West Adelaide last week. He's coming off a slow start to the season and he's motoring home now. So just watch him inch up the draft board, because he's putting together some very exciting performances. And also went and watched Western Jets and Gippsland Power on the weekend. And my man, the Flying Viking, doing a bit across half back and through the midfield, but also across half forward as well at times. So Alex Taru, if you don't know who that is by the nickname, he's going very nicely too. So took marks, flies for everything, and a club is going to make him a very, very exciting prospect in the future. There's a bit of a roundabout of the 2020 draft crop from the weekend.
Like it from you, Cal. All right, Luca wants to know, which way will the AFL Commission decide on the academy system this week?
Well, the Commission meets on Thursday and Friday. My expectation is that we see the NGA rules ticked off. I'd be shocked if that got knocked back, having been put forward, with clubs able to match bids from pick 1. Free agency compensation, including length of deal, that I think that would go through. Trading of future picks for 2 years. Mid-season trading of picks next year, I expect to come in as well. Extension of rookies on list to 5 years maximum. I think all of that will be signed off to come in this year, ahead of next year. The big one is whether the draft value index and the bidding system comes in next year or for this year. My belief is that we won't see it come in this year. That's my belief of where it sits, and that it'll be implemented for 2025. That's my read on it, which obviously a group of clubs have pushed for the delaying of that for 2025.
Was DVI one of yours?
I
You
wish.
love an ABV abbreviation. James wants to know, how would you fix Essendon's list?
Well, there's still lots of holes there. They desperately need a small forward, which they'll get in Isaac Kako, and it's why they were so keen on Ben Ainsworth. And any Essendon supporter that looked at that and thought
Yeah.
that wasn't a good move to be trying to get him, wasn't seeing the forward line struggles. Another key forward alongside Caddy and Langford would be ideal, a taller midfielder. Another use of half back to free up Nick Martin.
One of each.
Yeah, just about 6 different things at the minute. Look, it's interesting how the season's fallen away for them. I think, and I wrote this on AFL.com.au this week, I think the weight of expectation over the last month, and that footy club's burdened by expectation of 20 years of mediocrity. So I'd be surprised if they weren't active again in the off-season.
Really just thought they'd kick on after that Collingwood win. Stephen wants to know, which senior Tigers do you think will go on next year?
Well, if you were in contract limbo, we know Dustin Martin, which we spoke about earlier, who obviously has a decision to make, retire or go to the Gold Coast, which I'm still a little bit cooler on him going to the Suns than others, but we wait and see. The Martin mystery lives on for a few more weeks. Camden McIntosh out of contract. Dylan Grimes, we expect to play his last AFL game after that back surgery. Dion Prestia also out of contract. I expect him to pen a 1-year deal and stay on for next year. That's in the works at the moment. So I'm just interested in which method Richmond takes. And looking at the way Hawthorn are going now, does that actually change the view or affect the view of how this footy club should shed and take in picks, trade players with currency, scale back, cut quick, cut fast and rebound fast? You know, the Hawthorn model at the moment is looking at a pretty attractive one. And Richmond as a big club will be able to be in the conversation for guns across time. I'm fascinated to see which way they take it.
It's a real cross in the roads, fork in the roads.
Yes, either or.
Real crossroads. Coops wants to know, who is Collingwood getting in? We got there.
Not sure how busy they'll be this year. Don't have a first round pick to make anything happen necessarily, but next year all the talk is going to be on Tom McGuan, who I actually watched play for the Western Jets on the weekend. This was some of his vision from the week before. He's a lighter-bodied and smaller player. Father-son, the son of Mick McGuan. Very smart and nifty player. Kicked 2 goals from 34 touches against Tasmania a couple of weeks ago here. Looks an exciting talent. Just reads the game really well. They'll get first access to him under father-son rules. So that's something that they'll have to plan ahead for, and they'll also know, what the DVI situation will be there too. But another father-son coming through the ranks of the Pies.
Done well with father-sons the last couple of years, the Pies. Lockie wants to know, how many ruckmen will move as part of the ruck merry-go-round?
I wouldn't call him muck. The
muck merry-go-round.
Well, Tim English, as we spoke about, is there. He's the big fish. Nick Bryan, Peter Laddam's contracted. Ivan Soldo's injured at the moment, but would a club try and rip him out even after just 1 year? They have a couple of good ruckmen. Dante Vicentini's a really talented player as well. Hasn't really been able to get going this year, Ivan Soldo. Lockie McAndrew at Sydney, and Mark Pitnet too, as the ones I'm looking at. Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating sort of situation to see how it plays out, because there haven't been as many on the radar this year as in years gone by. It only takes one though, and then and then everyone needs one. The merry-go-round starts. Is it the same for pocket change, do you reckon? No, pocket change. Do you lose one, get one, lose one, get one? I don't know. Not really. All right, Kel, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Google Pixel. We'll see you next week. Join Kane Corns and myself, Riley Beveridge, for The Round So Far, where we bring you all of the results and break down the weekend's events. All the biggest winners and losers and what it means for them and the competition. Join us first thing Sunday mornings all season long for The Round So Far.